I don't think many Canadians that follow the news know a thing about Canadian politics. I had somebody the other night say, "You watch too much news," and I'm like, "I don't watch any news. I follow politics." There's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, won't waste any time. We'll jump right into it. We have Opposition Leader of the Conservative Party, while Pierre's waiting to get a seat back, Andrew Scheer. He's stepping up. He's been working hard. He seems tired here, seems a little bit pissed off. Let's take a peek at what Andrew's talking about, see what's been going down on Parliament Hill. He's probably going to let us know. Let's take a look and listen.
Well, Liberals certainly shouldn't be giving themselves a gold star or a pat on the back for a piece of legislation that really just gives them the ability to get around their own barriers to project development. This government continues to double down on the failed Trudeau policies that devastated our energy sector. Mark Carney has decided to keep the oil and gas production cap in place. He's decided to keep the industrial carbon tax in place, which puts our steel and aluminum workers at a massive disadvantage when it comes to competing against their American competitors. He has kept in place the shipping ban, the ban on shipping Canadian oil and gas into new markets in Asia. So there is still a lot of skepticism in the Canadian energy sector about whether or not this bill will actually lead to results. And that is where Canadians should judge this government, not in the theatrics and not in the rhetoric. We've seen that from Liberal governments for 10 years. This is a 10-year-old Liberal government that continues to double down on these failed Trudeau policies. Mark Carney has had ample opportunity to specifically give a commitment that he will get pipelines built. He had an opportunity when he met with the premiers. He had an opportunity in the throne speech. He had an opportunity multiple times throughout the last few weeks in the House of Commons, and he continues to refuse to commit to getting a new pipeline project built. Conservatives worked very hard on C5 to put protections in place. Mark Carney is someone who has a lot of conflicts of interest. In fact, government officials acknowledge that they are, quote, having to manage the ethics screen to deal with all his conflicts of interest. And when he proposed this bill in Parliament, he tried to give himself the power to get around the conflict of interest laws that prevent Liberal politicians from funneling cash into the pockets of Liberal insiders, or worse, into companies that Liberal politicians own assets in. Conservatives worked very hard to put those protections in place to make sure that that can't happen. So our team worked incredibly hard over the last few days to put those types of protections in place to beef up the transparency and accountability. But once again, I believe Canadians will judge Mark Carney on the results, whether or not things actually get done. Carney this week had an opportunity to repeal the Trudeau ban on gas and diesel-powered vehicles. He decided to vote against that and force all his MPs to do that. That means starting next year, it will be more and more difficult for Canadians to purchase their favorite car, truck, or minivan. And as early as 2035, there will actually be a ban on the sales of new gas and diesel-powered vehicles, which means that so many Canadians won't be able to afford a new or a used vehicles. This is what happens to Canadians when government gets big and bossy and overreaches and starts to dictate to them what kind of vehicles they need to buy. So Conservatives will continue to monitor the situation, continue to advocate for the government to repeal the failed policies of the last 10 years, like the shipping ban, like the oil and gas production cap, like the industrial carbon tax. And Conservatives will continue to be a real champion for our energy sector and the men and women who work in it.
Mr. Scheer, why did you vote for it then? If there's so many problems, you must have seen something useful or constructive in the bill if you voted to support it.
Well, if there's even a glimmer of hope that something might come from this, then Conservatives aren't going to stand in the way of that. We've been the advocates of the energy sector. We are the ones who are advocating more and more. It was the Liberals who told our allies when they came to Canada that there was no business case for things like LNG. We were the ones trying to diversify our trading markets when it comes to Canadian oil and gas by approving pipelines to Western shipping terminals. The Liberals brought in that shipping ban to prevent that from happening. So, as I said, we worked very hard at committee to make sure that the protections were in place. We'll see what happens now. We want to see whether or not Mark Carney and the rest of the Liberal government, who have spent years fighting against the energy sector, if they can actually get results.
Part of what held up projects in a previous Conservative government and indeed in the Liberal government were court battles, as you know, judicial problems, whether it be from Indigenous groups, environmental groups. Part of what the Prime Minister put forward today was a different way to go about it. Do you think that I'm asking, do you think that the process will avoid court challenges, or do you think that he will come up against the same opposition that previous governments have seen?
Well, we'll see. I would just point out that the previous Conservative government oversaw multiple pipelines get approved, and the robust jurisprudence around consultation was clear at the time. It was Liberal legislation and Liberal refusals when they lost court decisions to either appeal or to slightly modify the way that they handled the consultations. Liberal governments decided not to pursue that. So the end result of those projects not moving ahead were direct results of Liberal decisions. Conservatives would have supported those projects.
That's fine, but the consultation process, the way he set it up now, to meet with some Indigenous groups going forward, do you think that there's a chance that that will facilitate what you're looking for?
He has been completely unclear about what happens in the absence of a complete consensus. Though that's something that Conservatives are concerned about. We need to make sure that we have a path forward, that there's robust consultations, but that it's actually possible to get a yes. The Liberal government has proven for 10 years that they're simply not interested in that.
I guess I'm wondering, why didn't you use your power as an opposition to withhold your support as a bit of a bartering chip to get bills like the tanker ban or C-69 repealed, or a firmer commitment on pipelines? Like, you had the power as the opposition to potentially push the government on it instead of supporting this legislation.
Well, we've definitely been pushing the government. We've raised it in question period multiple times. We've put forward
this without any commitments getting made.
We've put forward multiple times proposals to do that very thing. But as I said, if there's a glimmer of hope in this bill that potentially might somehow reduce the regulatory burden, we'll see what happens. We'll judge this government in the end result while we continue to push for things like an end to the shipping ban that really keeps Canada beholden to the U.S. market. That's something that would be a great question to ask Mark Carney. You know, here we have a situation where we still are facing unjust tariffs from the United States. It's more clear than ever that Canada would do well to have more markets to sell our oil and gas to, and Mark Carney has decided to keep in place a shipping ban that prevents Canada from selling our oil and gas to Asian markets. Why did he not include that? That's something Conservatives press him on. We can continue to facilitate the reduction of some of those regulatory burdens while pushing to get an end to the shipping ban and the production ban. The cap on Canadian oil and gas production will mean that all the rhetoric and all the theatre about this bill won't mean a thing if this government still imposes a production cap that means that there can't be new development in the oil and gas sector. That's something that Conservatives will continue to push for.
How should the Prime Minister deal with the pushback he has received and concerns about this bill from First Nations and other Indigenous rights holders? What should his approach be when it comes to getting those groups on side?
Well, look, he is the one that said he set the bar for himself very high. He said he can accomplish this. He has asked Parliament for this tool. He said that Bill C-5 is the missing ingredient to get big projects built. Now he will be judged in the results whether or not he actually delivers.
So would a Conservative, given your criticisms of the bill, would a Conservative government repeal it if you get in power?
Well, if you think about what this bill does, this is a bill that gives the Prime Minister the ability to go around other pieces of Liberal legislation. So what the Conservative position is, we would repeal the oil and gas production ban. We would repeal the shipping ban. We would repeal the industrial carbon tax, which continues to force Canadian steel and aluminum workers to compete against their American counterparts with one elbow tied behind their back, because their American competitors don't have to pay that carbon tax. So those are some very concrete measures that Conservatives would do that would very quickly signal that trust to the energy sector that, yes, under a Conservative government, you can actually get big projects built. Unfortunately, with the Liberals, they've decided to double down on those failed Trudeau policies. Now we will hold them to account in the next weeks and months to see, can they actually get anything done?
And are the Conservatives okay with the part of the bill that allows Cabinet to override parliamentary laws that have been passed?
Well, again, if you think about this, after 10 years of Liberal government, the Liberals are asking to get a big pat on the back and a big gold star for giving themselves the power to go around their own legislation that killed so much investment in the energy sector. Hundreds of billions of dollars have left Canada to our competitors. Investment dollars going to the United States and to other countries to develop oil and gas projects, which, by the way, Mark Carney's company, Brookfield, invested in. That's something that has infuriated many Canadians to see all those jobs and opportunities leave Canada. What we believe is that we needed to have those robust protections. So you asked specifically about sections of the bill. We put in sections of the bill to protect taxpayers from conflicts of interest, from inappropriate lobbying, a lot of proactive disclosure so Canadians can see exactly what's going into the decision-making process. So we vastly improve this bill, but we'll wait and see if anything actually comes from it, if they actually get results. Maybe one more, and then I'll have to.
Is Conservative support for future government bills going to come with strings attached, like getting the emissions cap removed, or like getting the industrial carbon tax or the EV mandate removed?
Great question. We're in the early days of this new government, and we are continuing to push for that. That's something that we'll have more to say probably in the fall when we come back and see the government's budget. They refused to table a budget this summer. They've decided to spend even more money than Justin Trudeau, borrow even more money than Justin Trudeau. And it's important to think about that, all the broken promises already that Mark Carney has racked up. He promised in the throne speech to cap new spending growth at 2%. He then walked into Parliament just a few minutes later, blew past that, 8% new spending growth, including billions more for consultants. All that borrowing means more pressures on inflation, more pressures on interest rate. So when we come back in the fall, we'll have a lot to say about the Liberal economic plan, including pushing for things like the end to the production cap, end to the shipping ban, and an end to the industrial carbon tax. I mean, for all the discussion that happened in the lead up to the election, the Liberals, for 10 years, fighting to impose the carbon tax on Canadians. And for them to leave the industrial carbon tax, all those steel, aluminum, auto workers who have to compete against American companies, those American companies don't have to pay that carbon tax, Canadian companies do. This just makes no sense at a time when the United States is slapping these unfair tariffs on us. It doesn't make sense any time, but especially now.
So would you make that contingent then on your support for big bills? I mean, they didn't pass a lot of the legislation that they put forward, like Bill C2. There might be, the Conservatives may agree with that bill, but are you guys going to play hardball and make getting that industrial carbon tax removed a string attached to your support?
Well, as I said, as we come back in the fall and more legislation is proposed, we'll be making decisions on a bill-by-bill basis, on a case-by-case basis. When you talk about conditions and playing hardball, we played hardball at committee to get those amendments in place. And I have to give credit to my colleagues, Shannon Stubbs and Phil Lawrence. They were here working incredibly hard to put those provisions in to protect taxpayers, to make sure there can't be Liberal corruption, as we've seen so many times, like with GC Strategies and the Arrive scam or the Green Slush Fund. Every time Liberals have an opportunity to dole out cash, they tend to find Liberal insiders to funnel that money to. We put in some safeguards against that, and now we're going to be watching like hawks to make sure that they don't try to do what they've done in other areas in the energy sector as well. Thanks very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup.
So everyone, what do you think? Andrew Scheer looking a little tired there, stuttering and stammering at the beginning of that, but he got into it, found his spot, and he has many great points to make. I don't think many Canadians that follow the news know a thing about Canadian politics. I had somebody the other night say, "You watch too much news," and I'm like, I don't watch any news. I follow politics. There's a big difference. If you're watching the news, they tell you what happened. I watch what happens, and then I show other people what happens. I don't tell them what happens, I show them. They don't do that on the news. Anyhow, Aaron, right here, Canadian Loonie, thanks for watching this video. Hit the subscribe, like, share, get notified, all those fun things. Come hang out for one of our live shows. Amazing chat room. You'd enjoy it. It's very engaging. A lot of friendly people, similar-minded. Swear, come and check it out. How about the dimples on Andrew Scheer? Those are the cutest dimples I've seen on a 50-year-old man ever. We're out, gang. Catch you next video. Thanks for watching this one. Get your Canadian federal politics right here.
What? Oh, yeah.